hearing myself talk about it, it sounds like there's a lot of things that I don't like about this book. Survival instincts of a gnat, people. This is the stack of books that I picked out. I rated it a 1 star because I can't rate it anything lower. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kari, and today's video is going to be a weekend reading vlog. I have a few books that I have picked out from my library and some books that I have at home, and I'm going to try and get through as many as I can. This weekend I also plan to do some baking, and my fiance and I are actually going to go out and buy a puzzle, so I'll be doing some crafting and just kind of hanging out this weekend, and I wanted to take you along with me. So let's get into the books that I could be reading this weekend. This is the stack of books that I picked out for my weekend TBR, and I'm not sure I'll make it through all of these by any means, but I definitely wanted to have more rather than not enough. Some of these are from my local library that I picked out, and then one of these is actually mine that I'm in the middle of reading. The first book on my TBR is called What We Did to Survive. This is by Megan Lawley. This book follows our main character Hannah, who is on spring break during her senior year with her best friend Emmy. They go with Emmy's family to Mexico to hang out at a resort. Although Hannah does have feelings for Emmy's older brother Jackson, her best friend Emmy ends up meeting a guy while they're on the beach, and it leaves Hannah feeling like she is now third wheeling on this romantic spring break. To impress Emmy, her new boyfriend decides to take them out on a private charter boat and decides to invite Hannah and Jackson along with them. But as they start to leave port, a storm is rolling in and they are the only boat heading out into the ocean, and it leaves Hannah wondering. And as they get out onto the ocean, the storm continues to roll in, and it leaves Hannah wondering, how are they going to survive? I think it will be great for the summer vibes, because although it takes place in spring break, it is kind of thriller summer vibes, and I feel like this will be a great read for this weekend. I also ended up picking up The Threads of Power by V.E. Schwab. I've never read any books by V.E. Schwab, but I know a lot of people say great things about her writing and how wonderful and immersive the fantasy worlds she builds are. This book takes place in 4 separate worlds that is connected by one city, which happens to be London. Although to prevent power and corruption, there are only 3 left, those being Grey London, which is still thriving but does not remember any magical heritage, so the people there are mortal. There is Red London, which is full of magic and power and is thriving as well, and White London, which is left to ruin and decay and cruelty. We follow 3 main characters in this book, the first being Koska, I think that's how you pronounce that name, which is the child of the queen in White London, Delilah, who is our second character, who is a thief and a magician who lives in Grey London, and then lastly Tess, who is a runaway who is hiding her powers and does not want to be seen and is trying to stay out of the spotlight. So these 3 have to come together to try and save the last 3 worlds from falling into corruption and despair, and Tess holds the key to being able to do so. So this sounds like it's going to be a really fun read. It is a little bit bigger than the last book, but I am excited to pick it up. But the 2 books that I am going to be focusing on are going to be the next ones that I'm going to talk about, because I've already started them, and so it just makes sense to try and finish those before I begin more books. The third book on my TBR is actually one that I have started reading in a different video on this channel, which is The Hunger of the Gods by John Gwynne, and I have made just a little bit of progress on this book, so I am about 60 pages into this. This is the second book of the Bloodsworn series. I read through book 1. It took me some time to get through, but I really enjoyed it, and now this book 2 follows the same characters, Orca, Varg, and Elvar, on their journey, and we follow them in the Bloodsworn and the Battlegrim, which are 2 different battle packs, I guess, in this realm, after they have awoken a dead god. I am really liking this book. I think it just has taken me a little bit to get into it, just because of the pacing and the world building, and the amount of detail that goes into this book is quite enormous compared to some of the other books I have read previously. I am really liking it, and I'm hoping that I can get further into it. So this is going to be one of the books that I prioritize this weekend, because I would like to make quite a bit of progress on this, if not finish it, before moving on to the previous 2 books that I just talked about. The last book on my TBR for this weekend is Inam Marada by Ava Reed. This is a newer release. It came out a few months ago. This is another library book, but look at how pretty these sprayed edges are, which I think is just so cool. So not only is this a pretty book, but it is a gothic fantasy book. So far I am about 115 pages in this book, and so I would like to actually finish this book. Since it is a library book, I do have to return it relatively soon, so this is going to be the first book that I start with this weekend. This book takes place on an island where the dead used to walk the earth, but now that magic has since passed. There are 7 ruling families, and one of them is the House of Teeth, where we follow our main character, Lady Agnes. She has been given orders by her now deceased grandmother to marry off her cousin Marozia, who is actually the heir of the House of Teeth, to the Prince Leopron on to gain the favor of the king and hopefully uncover the secrets of the dead magic that used to roam in the land. Things start to go awry after the arranged marriage because there is political unrest and people within the royal family are not who they seem to be. Although Agnes is focused on her mission and consumed by her rage to be able to avenge her now deceased grandmother, Leopron does catch her attention and she has to fight with her own desires between what she was told to do to determine her next steps and honor her family. So this is a really interesting book so far. I think it took me also a little while to get into this because the amount of detail is insane in this novel. Literally like the first 4 chapters, it felt like, were just all detail about the world, the magic setting, the people. They definitely have totally different like their burial rituals for when her grandma passed away was insane. I think that the story so far is really intriguing. I think that the friendship is quite odd between her cousin Marozia and Agnes. I think that there is some weirdness there for sure. And the budding romance between Leopron and Agnes, although he's married to Marozia technically. And so I think this is the first book that I'm going to pick up and try to finish this weekend. And then I'll move on to The Hunger of the Gods, then the other 2 if we still have time. But it is Saturday at 11 o'clock, almost noon, and in just about an hour, my fiance and I are actually gonna go to Hobby Lobby and pick out a puzzle. That's something that we decided we wanted to do this weekend. But other than that, I plan on doing some baking. I did just restart my sourdough starter because I didn't feed it for a few months, so it was sitting in my fridge unfed. So I'm hoping to salvage that. If I can, I'm gonna make a loaf of sourdough this weekend. If I can't, I will bake something else, likely, probably. I hope you stick around and I hope you enjoy, and let's get to reading our first book. I am gonna warn you now, when I do talk about these books throughout the rest of this video, there may be some slight spoilers. I will not try and give away any major plot spoilers or any major plot events that occur, but I do want to be able to talk about romance between characters as well as maybe betrayals that occur. I will try and keep it as vague as possible, but I will also put a warning up on the screen if I'm about to talk about a spoiler and you would like to skip it, and I will add a timestamp to where you can skip to avoid that. So I just want to give some background before I start reading this book about kind of my first initial thoughts, being about 100 pages in, as well as kind of what's going on right now in the book. We follow our main character, Lady Agnes. She has not spoken in about 7 years. That is not a spoiler. It is in the book description, so don't worry. I am abiding by my laws. She refuses to speak, and I think this is kind of what draws the Prince Leopron to be intrigued by her, is that he constantly tries to like greet her and she just like won't say anything. And hearing her internal thoughts of being like, you think this is gonna get me to speak, is quite funny actually. She's kind of a bitter individual because she is trying to avenge her family and get back the necromancy magic that they used to have the ability to do on the island. So she's trying to be kind of like a double agent, marry off her cousin while also trying to get information on this family so that she can basically ruin them. Although, like I said earlier, the relationship between her cousin Marozia and Agnes is quite odd. There were times, honestly, where it was borderline uncomfortable. They share a bed, and not just like, oh, we sleep next to each other, but they like have to cuddle each other to sleep. I'm not even gonna joke, I almost DNF'd the book because I was like, we ain't doing no Sweet Home Alabama shit up here. That's disgusting. What do you mean? Yeah, they're both grown adults, by the way. They're not like 6, they're like 20. Thankfully, nothing like that has happened again, really. There's still this like weird intimate attachment. I don't know. It's just kind of a weird relationship. Okay, that's my only like qualm so far. That and some of the detail in this is so gory. I think that if you don't like gore and kind of grotesque things, you're gonna have a hard time reading this book. But for me, I mean, sometimes it makes me uncomfortable, but it's not to the point where I'm like, okay. If anything, the cousin thing is the thing weirding me out. Like, it's giving Game of Thrones. And that's kind of the thing that's turning me off from this book so far. But it's getting better. The further I get into it, the less cousin weird stuff is happening. So that's the only reason I've been able to continue reading it. So honestly, now hearing myself talk about it, it sounds like there's a lot of things that I don't like about this book. But it's honestly, it's been interesting. It's been interesting is what I'll say so far. So I'm gonna continue reading this, and then in just a little while, we're gonna go to Hobby Lobby. This is my outfit for going to Hobby Lobby.
It's just an oversized black t-shirt with these checkered shorts and my sandals.
That's it. Nothing fancy. Okay, we're back from our little trip. We went to a few different places. We went and checked out a comic book shop. We checked out a thrift store slash antique shop, and then we finally made it to Hobby Lobby. And of course I looked at like all the fall stuff, but we ended up picking out this puzzle, which I feel like it's so cute. And because we never do puzzles, we also got one of these like puzzle mats, so you can roll it up if you're not done with your puzzle. So we're gonna do a puzzle, we got some snacks, and we're probably gonna watch a movie. So that's what I'm gonna do for the next little bit, and then I'll get back to reading eventually. I got a fun drink because, I mean, if we're having a movie day, puzzles and doing fun things, of course we need a fun drink. This is a limoncello that I picked up. I've never had this brand before, but it looks promising. And limoncello is just such a summer drink. This is the brand, if that matters to anybody. It's about 3:30, and then I'll pick up my book again at some point. Sorry if you keep seeing my hair flying to my face. My AC is right here, and it's like... Anyway. Okay, see you soon. I'm probably gonna stop reading for the night because it is currently 10:07. Although it is Saturday, I'm probably gonna wind down. I made it to page 138. So not a whole lot of progress, but I'm hoping I'll make more tomorrow. I would like to finish at least this book this weekend and then start on to Hunger of the Gods. I will see you guys in the morning to continue reading Inam Marada. It's now the next day and I did get some more reading done. I was able to find the book so I could read it on my Kindle, so I was able to find the ebook. So I actually got quite a bit more reading done than I thought I was going to. And I ended up switching over to my ebook just because it was nighttime, so I didn't want the lights up super bright in my living room, so it was not really possible for me to read the book without straining my eyes. So I was able to find it on my Kindle, so I read it on there last night after we worked on the puzzle a little bit more. I have found out that my fiance is way better at puzzles than I am. Like, he has put together so many pieces and I'm over here like working on this tiny little corner and he's like, how have you not gotten farther? And like, I'm not even joking, he's like quadrupled the amount that I had done. But I mean, that's okay. That's why I have him, is he helps me get the puzzle done quicker. Today, my big plan is just I want to finish Inam Marada. I want to start reading Hunger of the Gods, but maybe in between those two books I will read What We Did to Survive, which is that short like thriller, just because I want something as like a refresher between the two, because this book is super dark and gruesome. I've realized I think the plot is good. It's definitely not like one of my favorites of the year that I've read so far, but it's definitely not like a DNF. There's like some things with characters that are like kind of problematic. This is definitely more of like a gothic fantasy horror book in my opinion, because gosh dang, these people go through some things that I'm like, I don't know if I'd survive that. It is about 11 a.m. I have been reading again this morning, still on my Kindle. I feel like I read quicker on my Kindle for some reason. Maybe it's because my eyes skim the words more. I don't know. I have no idea. I've made it to page 344 of 547. So I am about 65% of the way through this book. I think I'll find something to bake today, either with my sourdough starter that I have going. I don't know if it'll double in size though, because it was sitting in my fridge managed for quite a while being unfed, so I'm trying to revive it. So I don't know if that's gonna happen today. Thinking about making pretzel bites. I feel like that'd be kind of good. I don't know necessarily why pretzel bites, but those sound good to me, so I think I might make them. We will see. Oh, it's giving Game of Thrones. I said this before, I'll say it again. Gross. I have no words. This book is not at all what I thought it was going to be. I do not like this book. I thought it was going to go in a totally different direction, and the further I kept reading, the worse it fucking got. I think I have collected myself enough to explain kind of why I feel the way I do about this book. I think the best way to describe how I feel is I'm just gonna read you what I wrote for my review on Goodreads. I do talk about the trigger warnings for this book and the content and themes that are mentioned here, which I cannot mention on YouTube or else this video will be taken down. That's how dark it is. So if you want to read my full review with the trigger warnings in the review so you know what you're getting yourself into before you pick up this book, my Goodreads is linked in my link tree on my Instagram. I believe it's linked on my YouTube. It's linked on my TikTok, so you can find it there. But I said my issue isn't with the writing itself, it's with the content. There's a difference between writing dark gothic fantasy and relying on relentless shock value. This book includes repeated depictions and references to, and then I list all of the things, and countless other grotesque acts. For me, these elements didn't make the story deeper or more impactful. They felt excessive, unnecessary, and ultimately overshadowed anything the book was trying to say. I finished this novel feeling more disgusted than anything else, and I would not recommend this book. And I rated it a 1 star because I can't rate it anything lower. When you see the things that are listed, you might understand a little bit why. I do understand that there are dark gothic fantasies that deal with violent or grotesque subjects. Those don't usually bug me. I guess it was the manner in which the author wrote about these subjects in this book that I did not enjoy. I would not recommend this book to anybody. I think that the writing itself isn't bad. I think she's a really good writer. She's written a few really popular books, so I don't think it's necessarily in question if her writing is good and if it's of good quality, but rather the content itself. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm the one who has the problem with it and somebody else will love it, but especially with the ending where the next book I think is going to start off with, it's not something I'm interested in continuing reading, and it's not something that I feel like it's a waste of my time, honestly. And I felt like reading this book, I thought the first half was really good and I thought it was really interesting. I really liked Agnes's character. I really liked Marosia's character and Leopron, and I really found the dynamic between like the court politics and the people and leaders of like the island really interesting, and how the houses of Drepane like conducted themselves. I found that very interesting, and I really loved those gothic elements. There were just some things mentioned throughout the book that I was really disgusted by, as you could see from my previous reactions, and so no, I did not enjoy the book overall, and I would not recommend it to somebody else. So on that note, let's go read something else. Wow. Pivoting from whatever that was, I figured the next book that I would read is going to be What We Did to Survive. This is actually a really small book. It's probably just over 200 pages. Instead of starting off by reading it, I think I'm actually going to listen to the audiobook, which I was able to find on Spotify, which it's included in a premium. So I think I'm going to listen to this, and I'm going to make pretzel bites like I had talked about previously, but I figured I'd take you with me while I bake and listen to this audiobook. I am looking forward to this one because it is kind of like a summery spring break thriller, which I think are so fun. So I feel like this will be an easy one to get through within the next few hours, honestly, because it's only 200 and something pages. And if I'm listening to it and when I start reading it after I'm done baking, I feel like we'll get through this one in no time. On chapter 2 of this book, but I already have predictions. Those being that So, if you remember, this story follows Hannah and her best friend Emmy. The main point of view is Hannah, but she's on vacation with her best friend Emmy and her family in Mexico. And Emmy ends up meeting this guy while they're on vacation, and she's like all smitten with him. Hannah becomes the third wheel, all while she's still like pining for Emmy's brother Jackson, I think is his name. I feel like, so this guy's that Emmy is like her new boy toy or whatever for vacation. He's supposed to be like super rich or whatever. He has like, he's very wealthy because he's like treating them to like massages and farmers markets and dinners and all these things. I have a feeling that he's gonna be secretly evil. He's gonna secretly be like an asshole. He's giving rich asshole vibes because he originally hit on Hannah and then Emmy came over and he was like, oh, Emmy, you know, okay, we all know who men like that are. Say it louder for the people in the back. I'm gonna keep reading. That's the vibe I'm picking up. Because right now he's all perfect, pretty, amazing, awesome. We will see. Finishing What We Did to Survive, and wow. Okay, two things first. There's two things that I really did not like about this book, and they were character flaws. They weren't the book's fault or the writing's fault. Two of the main characters had like really annoying flaws. So I am going to talk about spoilers for this book because I feel like it can be discussed compared to Inam Marada because that book is insane. So I am going to talk about spoilers for this book. So if you don't want to hear that, jump to this time here and you will not get any spoilers for this book. So when I first began this book, I was immediately annoyed by Hannah's best friend, Emmy. She just sounds like a bad friend, if I'm being honest. Hannah talks about how they've been friends since they were like young and they went to high school together and they're best friends and yada yada yada. But she would say that like every time Emmy got a boyfriend, she would do one of two things anytime she was around boys, which was one, either not care about them and discard them and be like, oh, they're just for my amusement, or two, become so infatuated with them and like, my boyfriend can do no wrong, of like, oh, everything he does is perfect, everything's amazing. And I personally hate characters like that. I think that's so annoying, and I think that framing her as her best friend when like there were multiple times throughout the book that she sided with her new freaking boyfriend that she met on vacation over Hannah, her lifelong best friend. I was like, girl, you need to get a new friend because this one sucks like terribly. And she would like make Hannah, the main character, would make excuses for Emmy for her crappy behavior. She'd be like, oh, well, that's just how she is. No, that's just a really bad friend. If your friends are doing that to you, pick different friends, bro. Like that's insane. Literally the guy, I'm gonna talk about spoilers, don't forget. Literally what happens is he's like, we should get a charter boat and go to like out to the sea for your guys' last day. Like that would be so fun. After some time they convince her parents or whatever. But then they get on this boat and their sea captain is this Chad McDad bro who's like spent the past 16 years sailing, but he looks like all he does is drink tequila and is a womanizer, basically, is how the author describes him. Surprise, surprise, her new boyfriend, her new boy toy that she meets on vacation, his name's like Bennett or something. He goes by Ben. I don't know. Like I said earlier, turns out to be an asshole. I won't say who or how, but he literally commits murder, and Emmy's like, oh, he didn't do that on purpose. He didn't do that on purpose. And Hannah, her best friend, is literally like, no, Emmy, he murdered this person. Emmy's like, he would never do that. I can't believe he'd say that about him. Yeah. Okay, so that was my first annoyance. My second annoyance is with Hannah, our main character, which is that every time that they were in a perilous situation with said murderer, good old Benny boy, he would be like, we're not leaving until you all agree I didn't murder this person and it was an accident. And she would be like, oh yeah, well, what if we tell you that we agree and then we tell the cops when we get back on land? Why would you tell him that? Literally go along with it until you get there. Why would you give away your moves before you've made them? Oh my gosh, bro. That was infuriating. That would happen with every turmoil with this guy. Hannah would be like, I'm not doing that. Girl, just shut up and go along with it for now. Like, you don't have to actually do that. He doesn't know. You don't have to tell him. Survival instincts of a gnat, people. Survival instincts of a gnat. I was pretty annoyed with this book and like those characters, like interactions up until probably 3/4 of the way through the book. Like I wasn't not liking it. I still thought it was pretty good up until that point, but I was like, meh. But the plot twist at the end, I'm not gonna say anything about that, okay? But the plot twist at the end had me shocked. Oh my gosh, I'm not even joking. I almost shed a tear. And I don't cry over books that often. Like, I'm not much of a crier when it comes to reading books. But when I say I almost shed a tear, that ending was insane. That definitely bumped it up by like a 1/2 star rating. So I was originally going to say 3 stars for this book, but I think I'm going to give it a 3.5 solely because of that ending. The ending was actually like, I was so shocked. I'm not gonna lie. It was pretty good. I would recommend it if you want like a short summerish read. I think that it does the thriller aspect really well. There are some realistic-ish but annoying character flaws, so if you can deal with what I talked about previously, then I think you will like this book. It is really well done, and I did think the ending was insane. That twist at the end, wow. I was going to try and read Hunger of the Gods during this reading vlog, but I think that I'm going to hold off and end it here, honestly, because the video is already so long. I did not expect Inam Marada to take that long and turn out that way, so I think that is what kind of just threw me off my original plan. But I did get to read 2 of my 4 books that I wanted to this weekend, which is pretty good in my opinion. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this one, and I will see you in the next video.